without any further ado, I'd like to introduce my friend who, if you don't know, was born like our president in Hawaii. Mr. Harold B. Jones II.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you so much, and I appreciate everybody for coming here, and I'm completely overjoyed by the support. And Charles Wright, we would spend, I would stay up 2 or 3 in the morning working on various campaigns. Now I think about it, I should have been working on my campaign too. But we've been blessed with a great sheriff and also with Mr. Williams as our county commissioner for District 9. But things happen for a reason. And this position has come open, and it's a position that I have wanted and dreamed about for quite a long time. And it's the one that I feel I'm actually best suited for. I want to thank many people for coming out here today. As I look throughout the audience, I want to give a special acknowledgement to a couple of people that have been with me almost as long as my parents. One guy by the name of Daryl Belser, who's one of my best friends. 9 years old, I've known him. He drove all the way up from Orlando, Florida today to be here today, and I appreciate that. Robert Taylor, I've known since I was 7 years old. Always, both of them been there through thick and thin. I see that we have our sheriff here and Commissioner Williams, and I appreciate you being here, and also Solicitor McIntyre and Associate Judge Ben Allen. I appreciate all of you coming here today. Some of you who are in here today I've known since I was at Glen Hills High School, and we remember I learned history from a teacher by the name of John Barney. I learned mathematics from a teacher by the name of Paul Tompkins, those of you who remember him, and English from a teacher named Miss Stokes. Some of you I know from South Carolina State University, where at South Carolina State we all remember fondly being in Bethea Hall. The key thing about Bethea Hall was that there was no air conditioner in Bethea. It didn't have central air. And I was dying to stay there. Because the thing about South Carolina State was if you stayed at Bethea Hall, you were considered to be a real man. Because you didn't there with no air. I tell you what, when we were young, we were really stupid, were we not? Some of you I know from being at the solicitor's office, where I had the opportunity to meet Annette Ports, who was my administrative assistant, best administrative assistant a person could have, and Ms. McIntyre has continued to have her. Where I had PJ Campanero, who was my chief assistant, best chief assistant a person could ever have. PJ was a young lady come from Tennessee, couldn't be from 2 different places, but yet for some reason we meshed together and I made her my chief. And now, as I'm in private practice, my administrative assistant, Aisha Johnson, who is right there with me at all times. And also, many of you know me from being my new brothers from Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. But no matter how you know me or how long, almost everyone knows me by being Harold and Ethel's son. And I want them to stand up right quick. My parents to stand up. Please give them a round of applause. They are celebrating, not today, but they are celebrating their 50th anniversary of their 30th birthday. Was that okay, Mom? She don't let me say that. That means they're 80 years old and climbing. But they still look good.
Yeah.
That gives me hope.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I look at. That gives me hope.
Yeah.
They both went to Haynes Normal. Lucy Laney, for those of you that are a little younger, not from Augusta. My dad played football. People like Marion Barnes, who's a school board trustee, and others have told me that he was a great football player. I was just told that over the weekend. Now, I cannot attest to that because apparently that gene missed me. But it is my parents' generation that brings me here today. It is the generation that our esteemed President Obama calls the Moses generation. And it is on that generation whose shoulders we stand on. When we say first African American solicitor, as I was in 2004, first African American sheriff, as Richard Roundtree is today, first African American female solicitor, as Kelly McIntyre is, first African American U.S. attorney, as Ed Tarver is. It is those shoulders, the Moses generation shoulders, that we rest upon. It is the perseverance and determination of that Moses generation that instructs us today. It is their determination to overcome segregation, racism, war, and despair that not only African Americans had to face, but all persons during that generation had to face, deal with, and face those problems head on. So it was the Moses generation, no matter what color or creed or nationality or religion, that had to face big problems with big ideas. They had to face insurmountable obstacles with determined resolve. But somehow through those struggles, we have lost our way as a nation, as a city, as a state. We have lost those ideas and those ideals. We have gotten entangled in what President Obama calls the politics of the small. Distracted by the trivial, avoiding tough decisions with split-second decisions only to gain political points. And all of that means that not only have we lost our way politically, but we have lost our way just as people in general. That is why right now, today, you can go up the street or down the street and you can go to the courthouse and you will see persons who don't want to pay child support for their children, even though it's their children. You can go into a courtroom and you will meet young people today who can talk about murder as calmly and rationally as you and I can talk about the Super Bowl or who's going to win the best Oscar. And so this politics of the small has resulted in bad decisions and bad policy. So when we see our schools failing, we say, cut money. When we see our city increasing in poverty, 31% of our citizens live in poverty, we say, let's build a stadium or a coliseum. When we see the lack of private sector jobs, and our answer is, let's freeze government workers' pay. Let's cut jobs, deny raises. When we see misery and despair in a neighborhood in downtown Augusta, the answer is just to move them out, not to change the fundamental problems that they have, but only to move them to other places so their despair and their hopelessness can only increase throughout the county. And when we see that persons are struggling for health care, we say we deny persons Medicaid funds. That is the politics of the small. Now, I'm not one to think that government has all of the solutions, but I will tell you point blank, government is not the problem. Government creates opportunities. The GI Bill was an opportunity created by the government. Public schools was an opportunity created by the government. Social Security was an opportunity created by the government. Medicare and Medicaid were created by the government and created opportunities. Roads and transportation are all opportunities that have been created by the government to create and sustain this nation. So let's look at some of our issues and just look at some of the prescriptions that we can look at. In education, for instance, where I'm also a teacher, I've taught at Strayer University, University of Phoenix, Georgia Military, Phoenix University. One thing I can attest to is class size is always important, whether you're at the college level, whether you're at the high school level, whether you're at elementary school level. The difference between having 25 students and 20 students can make a constructive learning environment turn into a total chaotic situation. We have to find a way to retain our teachers. We have to find ways to make sure that we continue to cut class size. One of the things that we can look at is what we call pay performance evaluation. It's been talked about before, but in this situation, the way we want to propose it, what we want to do, is we want to collaborate with the teachers. Don't make it simply a cookie cutter formula. Because the fact of the matter is, what is achievement in one school is not necessarily the achievement in the other, but it doesn't make it any less a great result. We cannot say that one size fits all when we talk about teacher merit pay. That is one way to increase teacher retention. When we look at the fact that even in Augusta alone, we have lost over 300 teachers, furloughing across the state, we have to find ways to keep them in there. One thing about being a lawyer is we have to go to training. You want to be prepared. Training for teachers has been cut dramatically. We must include and basically continue to grow that. You don't want to go into a classroom not prepared. You don't want to go into a classroom feeling rushed. We have to continue our continual leisure education for our teachers. Not only in that area that we need to look at, we also need to look at from the private sector. There are a lot of good things that the private sector can come up with. What we should talk about is what I call the Georgia Impact Bond, social impact bonds. They're being tried all over through the country. And that is, the private sector can come up with different programs in collaboration with government. And only after they have success do they receive any money. But the way these social impact bonds work is it does not take any money from the general education fund. It is a separate stream. So there may be certain areas that we want to target. Young African American men, for instance, we may want to target that the general school system has trouble doing. We may want to target those who have difficulty in learning. Those are areas that the private sector can work with and collaborate with teachers for after school. But unlike what we're talking about today, when we want to actually take money from public education, this doesn't take money from public education, and it only receives money if it is successful. And it is the teachers who establish what the goals are for this particular bond. Those are things that we can address as far as education is concerned. Those are things that we can address as far as being innovative in how we do. Private investment, we have to get more private investment, not only locally, but in the state. One of the things that we can look at, we have a lot of colleges. I may have taught at all of them as I named them. One of the things that we've had here, that we see nationally, is where persons use bridge programs between the community colleges and even now they're for-profit colleges. What they do is they look at the community colleges and for-profit colleges and they bring them in to determine how they can best be suited to help get persons educated for jobs. It happened in Kentucky. UPS was thinking about moving out. It's one of the largest employers for Kentucky. They didn't keep them there through tax credits. They kept them there because they had a plethora of community colleges. And they said, UPS, you tell us, how do we get a strong workforce? You're telling us our workforce is not working for you. And UPS, the state, and the local governments got together and they created this bridge program. We have all of our community colleges. Every time you look up, we have now for-profit college sparking up in Augusta. That's a good thing. But what are we doing to actually get them prepared to go to work? There's no bridge there. So not only will this help the state, this is a direct impact right here for Augusta, Georgia. That is something we can do. Instead, many times we look at enterprise zones and gateway zones. Y'all remember when we wanted to stop the X mark from opening?
Yes.
Said it was a gateway. A gateway to what? There was nothing there then, and there's nothing there now. We have to stop looking at quick fixes on how we improve our economy and look at things that can actually develop our infrastructure, educate our population. So these are just some ideas that we can start looking at. We also, because we have a plethora of these type of colleges, not only in Augusta, but these programs will help Augusta, not only in the state, is simplify the process for persons to transfer their credits over. One of the most infuriating things for young people when they're in these particular colleges, that credits won't transfer over. Once again, other states have shown us the way. There's a simplification process to allow these credits to transfer over. And not only that, we also should be in the business of allowing persons to use their work skills to transfer into college credits. Other states are leaving us behind as far as all these issues are concerned. These are things not just to benefit education. These are things which create jobs. These are things which create real economic development. And we have so many of these colleges and for-profits right here. So not only are these going to be things that are going to help the state, they help Augusta through direct investment. And the criminal justice system, we have to adopt a system that stops talking about locking persons up and starts looking at more alternative sentencing, use of drug courts, use of DUI courts, improve education, as we talked about, not only by decreasing class size, but using innovation and technology. Improve healthcare by at least operating within the Affordable Care Act and not against it. Curtail the use of corporate welfare. Many of us will get mad if a young lady gets food stamps to feed her child, $80 a month. But we won't say a word if we gave millions upon millions of dollars to persons to build cathedrals that don't bring any real economic development to the community. That are taxpayers' dollars. We have to stop that. And we see now where persons who have plenty of money in places like Cobb County where they're moving the stadium, they have said, that's too much. That's enough. What does that really bring to our community? We have to be the same way here, not only statewide, but locally. Now, when we talk about these innovations and moving forward, there were those who would be skeptical and say they don't believe these things can happen. But even on a broader, grander scale, they'll say that they don't believe that we can improve the lives of individuals. But these are limits that we place upon ourselves. These are limits that others don't place upon themselves. Those who want to cut education see no limit in cutting education. Those who want to refuse anything under the Affordable Care Act see no limits in denying persons Medicaid funds. Those that want to propose the way out of poverty is to develop coliseums, they see no limit in doing that. Those that believe that your dollars ought to go from one boondoggle to another, they see no limit in doing that. So when we talk about limitations, it is only those of us who believe and who want to improve the citizenry that place limits upon ourselves. These are self-imposed limits. They are not limits of the American spirit. They are not limits of this nation, because this nation was founded in democracy where the whole world was ruled by monarchs. America recognized the horror of slavery, basically tore itself apart, but created a more perfect union. Our nation saved the world from tyranny, looked inside, and passed the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, Title VII, Title IX, to combat the twin evils of racism and sexism. So when we place limits upon ourselves to improve the citizens of this city and this state, these are artificial limitations. They are limits that we are putting on ourselves who want to do good. So we should no longer push limits on ourselves when we see a mother in East Boundary who has trouble feeding her child. We should put no limits on ourselves when we need to help grandparents in West Augusta avoid their child from joining a gang. We should place no limits upon ourselves when a father in South Augusta has trouble finding a job to take care of his family. We should set no limits within ourselves to help faltering schools, no matter what town they are, what part of section of town they live in, what city they are, or state. If we believe we can fix our schools, then we have to do it. If we believe we can fix healthcare, then we must do it. We may not agree on every way how to get there, but we have to at least believe we can do it. And I want to lead that effort to get that done. And I admit, like so many others, I am not the perfect vehicle to get there, but I need your help. I need you today, I need you tomorrow, I need you after this election. We need to win. I need your advice, I need your advice, I need your prayer and comfort, but I need your help. And as we go through this, I want you to realize that my office at 407 6th Street is always open. You can push me, you can pull me. Sometimes you might even have to fix me up. But let's work this thing together. The bottom line is, just work with me. And so with a clear mind, total focus, and energy to work for you, I ain't never resigning again, as long as you want me to do so. I announce my candidacy for Senate District 22. and I offer my help, and I need your support. Thank you very much.